There's a lady who knows all that glitters is gold. But maybe she's not familiar with Starcraft minerals. They're pretty shiny too. Okay, we've got ourselves a best of 3 and it's gonna showcase a big time fan favorite. But let me first introduce his lesser known Terran opponent. In the top left, in the red trunks, he is the phonetic spelling of a letter between P and R. He is Kyou! And he's gonna have his hands full going up against the most creative veteran in all of StarCraft 2. The greatest purveyor of Gouda the world has ever known. The bringer of semi-ripened fromage. Of course, with that kind of build-up, you just know he's gonna play standard all series long. It's something he has to do! Haas has been the top-ranked player in Taiwan for a decade. He has dominated his nation since the game was retailed. And that title includes an elevated spot over guys like Nice, Go-Go Joey, and Bud Always. And speaking of Nice, Kyou just went for the eBay block. Has just lost the spot to put down his natural. He responds by immediately making a zealot, and then he goes core first. We'll never know for sure, but that's probably not what he had planned for game 1. Oh, the SCV just snuck back in to build up that engineering bay even more. It's going to have even more hit points now. Oh, Haz has got to be kicking himself for letting that SCV get out of his sight. Haz is probably too much of a veteran to be rattled by this. But good on Kyou for getting the first stinger in there. In many ways, that's comparable to or even better than a first blood. Now, often when Terran eBay blocks, they try to take advantage by getting their own command center going. Get that econ advantage, but that's not what's happening here. Kyou has gone straight into factory reactor, and he squeezed out a single marine first. Zealot's out, core completes. Zealot goes to work on that eBay. Haz is gonna chrono boost the stalker and get his warp gate research. No tech choice. Play that order, Mr. LaForge, it's a robo. The old Rochambeau for you South Park fans. Factory finishes and it's a quick widow mine, followed by his starport, still no command center. I'm getting excited here. We're seeing the possibility of one base harass. Kyou is like, forget Haz, people. I'm writing the script tonight. There's the cancel on that eBay, and Haz is sending his units northward. Forced to make a zealot and a stalker. He wants to see if he can still get value for them. But he has no scouting info and does not know that there's a widow mine out on the map. Haz is halfway across Romanticide. 3 Marines are moving out to greet him. They're probably either going to guard the top of the ramp, see if they get some free shots, or they're going to try to suck them back into the widow mine. Oh, this is a great little trap. Kyou has soundly anticipated Haz's counter assault, and now he's going to make him pay. Oh, I don't care how savvy a veteran you are, that's gotta rattle you. But Haz at least has the presence of mind to pull back his zealot before he loses that too. He adds a couple gates. He did get some intel off his trip at least. He saw the lack of a command center at the natural. Second widow mine is out and the medevac is almost done as well. Kyou is gonna follow this up with drop play. Haz is going for a warp prism. He wants to generate some offense of his own. But the medevac is done first. It wants to load up with 2, make it 3 widow mines. This is timed out, people. And Kyou is finishing up an armory behind it. A very fast armory, and that's gonna preserve the cloak while those widow mines are on cooldown. As his warp prism launches, he's gotta hope for an interception to give him an early warning of this attack. Haz his natural completes, but if he's smart, he won't populate it just yet. Haz has a slight worker lead, and if he survives this, he'll be able to make probes 2 at a time and get a much bigger one. 1 widow mine slips into the natural completely unseen, the other 2 are headed for the main. Oh my god, how cool is Kyou? He's making a Thor. But all eyes are on our drop. There's the boost. Here's drop 1, here's drop 2. Haz has 4 stalkers, but he doesn't get the medevac. Both mines go down. Haz each mine a sacrificial lamb, but then discovers they're still cloaked. He needs detection. His observer's on the other side of the map. He's trying to make a second one. Here it is. And he's gonna be able to clean up the mines just before the cooldown ends. Oh, and the widow mine did pick up a probe kill at the natural. The second kill was the stalker from earlier, I believe. But what is that Thor for? I should have said Thor, what is it good for? Oh my god, it's a Thor rush. He's pulling SCVs. He's gonna try to repair the Thor in mid-combat, like it's a walking fortress or a mobile bunker. Now these Marines do not have stim or combat shield. but the Stalkers still do have to respect them a little bit. Oh, Haz brings back his Warp Prism and he can reinforce right in the field. He doesn't want to hit the Thor, not unless he can kill it. Kyou just heals it right back up in a second. And look at this, Kyou might have just cut off the Stalkers. Haz's army is separated from his base, but he snipes a medevac, that's huge. The medevac is critical to this build, I think. It keeps the SCVs alive, which keeps the Thor alive. Oh, look at this, Kyou sends his Marines right at the base while he's using the Thor to bully back the Stalkers. Haz is trapped out in no man's land, except that he might have a solution. He recalls, not to his natural, but to his main. He's gonna defend from his ramp. Just a terrific reaction by Haz. Kyou has built a second Thor, but it's a long way from the battlefield. Kyou has got to protect his last medevac. If he can block the ramp, he might be able to shut down the Nexus at the natural. But Haz's Rochambeau is produced an immortal. And now he's warping in extra zealots. They're gonna tank the shots. Haz is now sitting on a much bigger army. He gives the go sign. He shoots down the ramp to attack. He goes right at the medevac. He gets it. The immortal soaks the Thor hits. And then it's rescued by the Warp Prism. Just outstanding micro. He's focusing down that Thor. He's gonna get that too. And QGG's recognizing he has no army stuck on one base. Now that's how you kick off a series. Thor Rush. Okay, that was cool. Love the Thor Rush, and we'll talk about that. But first things first. In order to salvage any shred of credibility I may still have, I need to acknowledge that what you just saw was a pretty near copy of the Bunny Thor Rush build. The South Korean player Bunny has busted this out, most famously in a banger of a game against SOS. Now, Bunny may not have invented it, but he's clearly the highest ranked player out there using it right now, so we can at least safely say he popularized it, without offending the poor dude who really designed it. Maybe it was Bunny. I have to sneak in here, though, that most notably, when Bunny used this strategy to the delight of the Starcraft community, despite its awesome surprise value, he still lost that game to SOS. So, one thing I want to talk about is, why is the Thor Rush such a chronic failure? But before we do that, let's acknowledge that this is much more than just a Thor Rush build. That's the cool grand finale. But there's more to it. What this strategy really is, in my book, is a one-base fast armory build. The really funky part is that it's designed to maximize the benefits of the Terran armory. There's some neat synergies there. You use the armory to get the extended cooldown cloak on your mines. If your opponent doesn't have detection, you're pretty close to winning right there. And then, after that's done, the armory unlocks the Thor. And since you're making a medevac for the Widow Mine drop anyways, that means you have a healer at the ready to keep your SCVs in the game, which a lot of other Thor Rush builds lack. In fact, I actually think one of the keys to the Bunny Thor Rush build is keeping your medevacs alive during the drop phase and then keeping them in the game for as long as possible in the Thor Rush part. In fact, one thing Haz did really well was prioritize sniping the medevacs, and that contributed to his ultimate victory. That and his shrewd recall, of course, and having a Warp Prism to reinforce in the middle of the map. But let's talk about first why this strat should be so deadly. When I first saw this build in Wings of Liberty, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was the best thing ever. But back then, as is now apparently, it's still losing. Here's why it rocks. The Terran repair is one of the most powerful things in the game. If you think of it in terms of DPS, it's insanely high. I guess negative DPS, or damage per second, is the way to think of it. It subtracts from the damage your opponent is dealing. The game is programmed so that you can repair a unit from 1 health to full health in the exact same amount of time it takes to actually build it. In the case of a Thor, that's 43 seconds, or 9.3 health healed per second. But if you put a second SCV on it, the time cuts in half. Now it's 1 to 400 health in 22.5 seconds. With 4 SCVs, it only takes 11 seconds. And if you can actually get 8 SCVs to get surface area on the thing, unlikely, it's 5.5 seconds. By that point, the Thor is an unkillable Highlander zombie. You need to be applying over 75 DPS just to make the health bar hold steady and stop rising. If you've ever tried to attack a cluster of bunkers backed by SCVs, you'll know what I mean. And how awesome is the infamous SCV hug on a planetary fortress? Sure, Protoss can crush that with Splash and kill SCVs a dozen at a time, but remember, the Thor rush is designed to hit before the Protoss gets Storm or Colossi. There's no Splash. All SCVs have to be taken down one at a time, which can be ridiculous. How many unopposed shots will the Thor get in the meantime? And don't forget, SCVs are the workers with the highest health, 5 more than probes and drones. So, the defending player either has to waste their shots on the Thor. I put waste in air quotes because it's not terrible. You're still forcing your opponent to pay for the repair, I guess. But what the defending player really wants to do is go after the SCVs and put a stop to the repair. And here's what a lot of newer players may not realize. Your combat units all attack based on a preset list of priority. In a mass battle, the SCVs are really low down the list. Now, when the SCV actively repairs another combat unit, its priority is programmed to jump up to be exactly equal to the unit it's repairing, i.e. SCV and Thor becomes a 50-50 toss-up. Except, it's not really 50-50. With all things being equal on the priority scale, attacking units will then strike whatever unit is closest. When performing a Thor rush, the idea is to have the SCVs in the back. That way, if they don't repair, the Thor Highlander zombie takes priority and soaks the hits. And if the SCVs do repair, the Thor Highlander zombie still takes priority. So the recommended defense strategy is, if you can do it, actually risk running your units past the Thor so the SCVs are suddenly on the wrong side. Then you auto-attack them. It looks kind of silly, but it's supposed to work. The alternative is to click on the SCVs individually. Be a man and pick your own combat priority. This is what the Thor rushing Terran opponent wants you to do. That's sucking up your APM and in theory stopping you from doing other important stuff, like macroing or scratching your navel. It plays right into his hands. If you're a Clem-like speedster though, it doesn't really matter. Click away. So, if the repair is so powerful, why doesn't this strategy work? The truth is, I don't really know. I feel like the Thor rush should work way better than it does. But let me try. Problem number 1. Thors are weak to immortals. Both Has in this game and SOS in the game I referred to earlier got themselves immortals to stop the Thor rush. Thors are the armored type, so immortals do heavy bonus damage to them. Plus, their hardened shield means they survive the Thor's punches. Problem number 2. The supporting Marines are a lot softer than they look. This build means no stim and no combat shields. Stalkers tear those guys up. And if those Stalkers have a shield battery to access, they can easily go toe-to-toe with them. Problem number 3. As with any one-base strategy, the Terran player is all in. It is very difficult to transition to any other strategy or even build a second force, as the economy is in ruins by default. The Thor rush needs to work perfectly, or it doesn't work at all. Whew! Thanks for letting me get all that off my chest. Let me know your thoughts on Thor rushing in the comments below. Do you think Thor should take their time? Regardless, I do think we're officially overdue to get to Game 2. Adjutant, if you would please.
The game begins now.
So, the quarterly report from Beckett Industries was really awful. Digging into the numbers, I think it's only a matter of time before they suspend the dividend. It's almost as though the constant warfare has somehow been bad for productivity. I know, it's probably just crazy talk, but I don't think the forecast is too good for Beckett Industries. What is good is that has a chance to end this series with a single win in Game 2. Kyou's reward for bringing us that awesome Thor rush is to face elimination. It ain't fair. You might be sore about it, you might even be tempted to curse over it. But please don't say F you on this family channel because it's Kyou! And now a quick grammar lesson for the verb to possess. The correct verb conjugation is I have, you have, but it's he has! You know you're officially a veteran of Starcraft 2 when your biggest wins are against Jaedong and Naniwa. Has performed the usual gate and go, and that gives him an opportunity to try to harass that barracks. He also gets the scouting info he needs to have the confidence to put down his Nexus at his natural. Rax completes and it will be the immediate production of a Reaper. Kyou's going for a Reaper expand, but Haz is trying to delay the command center. Perhaps he wants a little bit of payback for that eBay block in game 1. It's a bit of a dangerous game though, because that Reaper's going to be out before you know it. Okay, command center goes down and I clearly over-exaggerated the delay effort there. Haz is doubling back, he's really prioritizing the scouting here. But that Reaper is gonna pop. I do think this probe likes living on the edge here. Yeah, I don't think he had any intention of going home. That probe be like, I'm the first blood victim and I don't care who knows it. You can be the one to tell him there isn't actually a cash prize for that. Core completes and we get a chrono boosted adept and warp gate research. No tech choice, Haz is going to prioritize putting a shield battery in his main instead. He knows that Reaper's coming, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to be done in time. That Reaper's already here. That adept needs to get here. KD8 charge goes off in the mineral line. Finally, the probe babysitter arrives. Oh, this is going to be close. No, the Reaper gets out. Maybe the Protoss shouldn't build Reaper stairs into their base. I don't know, it's just a thought. Meanwhile, Terran has a factory and reactor underway and has started a second Rax. Kyou's Reaper doubles back and is causing havoc at the natural. If nothing else, it's forcing Haz's adept to stay home just to deal with it. It can't get too much damage done at the main though with that shield battery there now. Stalker arrives and that should make things much more difficult for that Reaper. But look at the delay on Haz's tech choice. Haz doesn't want the Reaper to see it, so he's just queuing up minerals. Maybe we can call that tech damage. Am I allowed to make up a concept like that? Oh, and he kills the probe. Let's call that real damage. Oh, the Stalker blows the Reaper over the side of a cliff. I had the high ground, Anakin. Okay, so as soon as the Reaper's out of the way, Haz puts down a Robo. Back in the Terran main, we've got a Cyclone in production, and Racks 2 and 3 almost done. 2 extra gates for Protoss. The Adept's gonna try to get some scouting in there, but finds there's just too many Marines there now. I think the Shade is about all she can get done. I mean, we'll see, but I think this just has to be nothing but vision. Of which Haz is gonna get very, very little. He is not gonna see that Cyclone popping out, that's for sure. Kyou starts up the all-important stim upgrade, and he's adding a second tech lab on Rax number 3. Haz is getting a bit more aggressive here. He's adding his Stalker to his Adept. But the Cyclone's gonna roll out to greet them. He's got a lock on that Adept. He's gonna finish that off. Oh, but Haz is happy to trade. Come back, I want to trade. Adept for Cyclone. But Kyou says no to that. That Cyclone's gonna cost you an Adept and a Stalker. Haz also has a Twilight Council coming up. We'll have to see what that's for. And he's added a shield battery in his natural. And an Immortal follows the Observer out of the Robo. He sees the Cyclone and he's a little bit worried about mech. As we saw in game 1, Immortals like to eat armored things. Haz is gonna finally get that scout by sending over an Observer. Kyou's gonna do it on the cheap with just an SCV. But Haz spotted its approach and he shuts that right down. Kyou might be a little sad that he cheaped out there. Haz is gonna take a third. Or at least he's laying the groundwork for it. Oh, Blink being researched by Haz, and he's combining that with a Forge. Kyou is adding combat shields to go with his stim. And he's making Marines 4 at a time. The Observer's gonna drift in and see that it's some kind of tank Marine coming together. Oh, Kyou spotted the Shimmer. He's dispatched Marines to kill that Observer. It's gonna cost him a scan though. He doesn't have a starport for a Raven. Oh, he triggered that too early. No, I'm wrong. I'm wrong again. He picked it off. But the Observer kind of did its job there. Haz knows he needs splash. He starts up a Robobay, and he's also adding the Zealot charge upgrade. Haz is putting together an expeditionary force centered around his Immortal. But look at this, shades of game 1. It's a Thor rush without the Thor. Just kidding, but Kyou is pulling SCVs here. Haz is going to intercept the units trickling in the back. These are not the Marines of Game 1. They have stim, they have combat shield, and they fight back. Kyou skips the third and goes for the natural. It's a bunker rush. Haz's forces were split, so he did the Nexus recall just like he did in Game 1. Only this time he recalled to his natural instead of up his ramp. Up in his main, Haz is starting up a Colossus. He needs that yesterday. Triple bunker. Kyou is going to be seriously entrenched if those go up. Haz is adding another shield battery, hoping to have something to fall back to. His first shield battery's already been unpowered. Kyou drops a scan to give that extra range to his tanks. Haz is just getting hammered here. He's trying to play for time. That Colossus is only halfway here and the tanks are hitting the mineral line. Bunkers are done and they are loaded. There's 12 Marines inside. It's going to take so much to dislodge that. Haz warps in 5 Zealots. That's a good start. But he stopped mining at his natural. And this time Kyou has 2 bases. The income advantage is slid over to Terran, and he's using his extra money to reinforce his attack. Oh, the Colossi is ready. Here comes Haz. His focus is on the tanks. That's the heart of this. 1 tank down, but the Colossi falls. Look at the repair hug on that bunker. Haz gets the tanks, but there's just too many SCVs repairing that bunker. Maybe that's the theme of this series, the power of the SCV repair. Kyou tries to get his replacement bunkers up, but Haz is not going to let that happen. The SCVs were diverted from repairing the bunker, so Haz went right at it and took it down. The Immortal is soaking the tank hits, and now there's no Marines left to protect the tanks. Haz takes those down, and it's a single G from Kyou. Haz takes the series. Kyou decides to tell Haz that they have just played a game, but in fact, they have played a series. That's a good point, actually. When you finish a best of 3, instead of typing GG, shouldn't you really type GS, good series? Crazy idea, I never really thought about it before. Well, that was a quick series. We didn't get any crazy cheese out of Haz, and I'm not actually that surprised. I've watched a lot of Haz games in my day, and my theory is he cheeses up, not down. He generally busts out the cheese when he's facing a higher ranked opponent, one he might otherwise struggle with. But Haz is actually really quite comfortable playing a regular standard macro game. And he really seems to do that when he's facing his countrymen or somebody who's lower ranked. Fortunately, Kyou made up the difference by bringing us the special tactics today. Just want to thank all you guys for keeping me entertained in the comments. Love hearing what's on your minds. Hope you have a great rest of weekend. From my base to yours, Zugzwang out. To continue your Starcraft journey, Nova advises you to click the video in the upper rectangle. But Kerrigan warns you to watch your 6 and click the video in the bottom rectangle. Or you can stim pack your Starcraft experience. Subscribe to Zugzwang Starcraft. Just hit the circle. From my base to yours, Zugzwang out.